This terrible problem began to be noticeable during the 20th century. Human activity is to blame for the emission of carbon dioxide and other gases responsible for global warming. Glaciers have been melting silently for more than half a century, in the face of the constant advance of climate change, affecting different terrestrial and aquatic species and even becoming extinct. Are we destroying the planet? Probably. Glaciologists believe that despite the significant advance of ice loss, we still have time to save the glaciers from complete disappearance. The proposal they take are decrease CO2 emissions by 45% in the next decade and to zero after 2050 to slow global warming. Unfortunately, we are not working hard enough, but more and more companies are working to reduce gas emissions and fight against climate change. Curbing this problem is a global responsibility. Developing environmentally friendly technologies creates new jobs and opens up new markets. Climate change not only affects Arctic ecosystems, but also rainforests and tropical forests. It even affects health, creates land conflicts, water shortage, food security, hunger, and natural disasters that are worsening faster and faster. We are all important. The ecosystem is even more important because without it, we could not have what we can enjoy today, but that we are gradually losing. Let's raise awareness and improve our governments. Let's start working and talking action for your planet. We are the future.
Is it melting of the poles is serious? Yes, it is melting of the poles is serious, and its consequences, it is sea level is rising rapidly. The first direct consequence is that the loss of ice causes a rise in sea level. According to some forecasts, the rise in sea level might be between 42 and 85 centimeters by 2100 and more than a meter and a half by 2150. Two consequences: cities and coasts will be disappearing. The quickest consequence of this rise in sea level is the disappearance of some cities, Venice or Amsterdam, for example, are two cities that historical fight against the sea so that is thus not a good thing. With climate change and the melting of the poles, it will eventually become unsustainable. Like those cities, there are more, but they are not the only ones. 11 of the 50 most important cities in the world are coastal. Therefore, the impact of this rise in sea level can have devastating consequences for a large part of the population. If you keep up, peninsula like Florida will disappear, and the hills of San Francisco will turn into island. Big cities like Shanghai, Hong Kong, The Hague, or Osaka can also veer towards of it only in time. More than 30 million people live. 3 consequences. It is the migratory collapse and economic destabilizations. Not only the landscape of the coastal cities is going to change radically. Approximately 11% of the planet's inhabitants live less than 11 meters of sea level. That is more than 800 million people who will be directly affected by the melting of the poles. They will be forced to move and radically change their lives. But that is not all. The number of people harmed in some indirect way is impossible to calculate. For consequence, it is the serious alterations of the balance of ecosystem. Just as we are going to have to move and adapt to the flora and fauna of the seas and affected lands. That endangers entire ecosystems and the ecological balance of the planet. New species invade coasts and eliminate native fauna. Others will be displaced by the change in their environment and the flood. Also, we are not just talking about the melting of the poles. Apart from the Arctic and Antarctica, you have to take into account other extensions, such as Greenland or Alaska. The sea rises highest in 2014, according to NASA. That's more than 300 million tons and 3 times more than the melting of the South Pole that year. 5 consequences. Exposure to disease. One of the most uncommon consequences of the melting of the poles and other icy surface is the reappearance of diseases. For example, the melting of permafrost, the ice sheet that covers polar surface of other lands in Siberia led to the appearance of anthrax in 2016. Apparently, the corpse of a frozen reindeer, which emerged from the trough, was a carrier of the disease, free of the protection that it was supposed to have been under the ice since the appearance of that epidemic at the beginning of the 20th century in the area. It again affected the local animal population, and thousands of animals had to be sacrificed to tackle the crisis. The naturalist John Muir was sailing off the coast of Alaska aboard the steamship Thomas Corwin in search of 3 ships that had been lost in the Arctic. Near the tip of Barrow, he observed 3 malbirds that were eating the cubs, and even the mothers were looking for solutions, which are using less vehicular transport, recycling, avoiding the felling of more trees, using less plastic,